Look into my eyes. This is the face of a broken man. This is the face of a man who just did his taxes and now has a strong distrust of the government, which is why today we're going to be watching some more lore, make me feel better. I'm also very sick still. Well, not very, I was, but now I am getting better. Was getting better, but now my tummy hurts. And I want to watch more Grell. It is Grell time. Grell lore, Grell part of the Black Butler lore. If you guys remember this, if you're new, we're going through the Black Butler lore. We're also going to be going through some more lore, baby. And this is just what I want to listen to. It's been so long. So without further ado, let's get our Grell on.
It's this arc called the Red Butler arc on the fan wiki. I thought we all just called it the Jack the Ripper arc.
I agree. I thought it was Jack the Ripper, but it's about the Red Butler, baby.
Hello, and
No. Oh, God. It makes so much sense now that you think about it.
welcome back to my Black Butler Deep Dive, a series
Let's
of
go!
videos in which I take far too much time recapping and analyzing each Black Butler story arc, going chapter by chapter, at least for now. That being said, let's dive into the story arc that got many of us morbidly fascinated with the real-life serial killer Jack the Ripper.
True. Leave a comment, smash like if you were not interested in Jack the Ripper at all until after Black Butler had a whole Jack the Ripper bit.
The Red Butler arc starts
Activated.
off simple. We follow Sebastian and Ciel to their townhouse in London, where we find out that Madame Red, her new butler Grelle, and Lau were already there making themselves at home. It's nearing the end of summer, aka the social season, a time in which aristocrats and like the 1%ers
Oh, hold on.
flock to London and host parties. You know, being social. However, there's
Can you see it? Right here. It's Moxie. It comes full circle, guys. Literally me and Moxie review this.
been a very suspicious and gruesome murder that's got the Queen concerned, which is why Ciel, our antisocial king, has made the trek to London during this busy social period. And it's up to Ciel to get to the bottom of this new problem and to prevent it from happening again. Or at least from becoming like a long-term ongoing problem. This is where we're introduced to what has
Yes, family. A long-term ongoing problem.
become the main story element in Black Butler, an air of mystery. But not a classic traditional mystery story where you get presented with all the evidence and can deduce what's going on. More a mystery that the characters are in, and we as the audience aren't really made privy to the actual investigation, nor the clues that help solve the case. As frustrating as that sounds, Black Butler plays the dynamic very well. This investigation isn't important to the story here. Like, it's not the important part. It's not the puzzle piece that we need, basically.
So it's giving the it's giving the atmosphere, and it's showing the role that Ciel has in the world rather than trying to make it all about the mystery itself.
The only thing that matters is the results, and what the characters do or learn with said results. Also, you can argue that a lot of the times the reader learns things as Ciel learns them, so it makes sense considering that Sebastian is actually the one doing all the investigating, which, sure, but up until this arc, Sebastian has been the sole main character, and Ciel isn't quite the main character just yet. After discussing
Yeah, it is one of those things where you thought that the show and the series would be more about Sebastian. I mean, it is called the Black Butler. You'd think that the titular character would be the main character, but no, it is the dynamic between the two of them, which is something that I love.
matters with Madame Red and Lau, the group head off to meet Undertaker, a strange man who can be bought with a good joke instead of money, which...
Undertaker, great character. I hope he stays that way forever, and I hope that he doesn't change as a person or a character, that he always stays this quirky guy.
Fair. This is when we learn that this Jack the Ripper fellow has killed quite a few times before. And Undertaker was able to group these victims together based on the common fact that these victims were all prostitutes whose uteruses had been removed. Which, as far as I could tell, was a thing that the real-life Jack the Ripper had done, on occasion at least, and many of the victims within the Black Butler series are based on real-life victims, down to the names being the same.
Yes, that is definitely the real story about it, but Jack the Ripper, I don't remember if he was real or not. According to Britannica, Encyclopedia Britannica, who is at least someone worth trusting, it was a real person, but he was unidentified, which means it could have been Whammon. Could have been a Whammon.
With the new information that this was a string of serial murders and the fact that their uteruses had been removed, Ciel and the gang make the assumption that whoever the killer was had to be someone who was educated in medicine and anatomy, and possibly someone who had connections to the dark underworld or...
My ears are not on straight. Hold on. Much better. Sorry, you deserve better than that. You really do. You really do.
Sebastian promises to compile a list of all people in London who could possibly fall into that category and investigate them. Which, you know, he does flawlessly and inhumanly fast because why not? Much to Madame Red's surprise.
But here's the real question. And I'm going to look this up right now. Is there Elle versus Sebastian? Elle from Death Note versus Sebastian. Who would win? There is not. There's Alucard. That's an interesting one. I mean, yeah, to be fair, yeah, no. There's no way Alucard loses. At least not. So, like, the original Alucard in, from the original Hellsing, that's not entirely sure. But the one from Hellsing Ultimate, absolutely not. He can't. He can't. But I do think that Sebastian wins IQ. At least there's that.
Prize. Sebastian beats them home with a full list of...
Anyway, what were we talking about?
Alibis confirmed.
Oh yeah, Elle versus, like, who would win, like, trying to catch Jack the Ripper? Who would have done it first? Probably just Sebastian for just sheer speed. Anyway.
And the suspect list narrowed down to just one person. See what I mean now when I say that Black Butler is a mystery only in the loose sense of what the genre usually has to offer. At least for the individual story arcs. We have plenty to speculate about when it comes to the overarching plot and the mysteries of character motivations, especially in more recent storylines, but we'll get there in due time. I do, however, understand the decision to present the story in this way, at least the Jack the Ripper arc. Having Sebastian go off behind the scenes and coming back mere moments later with everything done is kind of funny, and seeing his actual process...
True. No, seeing the process of how does Sebastian do stuff so quickly, it takes away from the magic of it all. It's the same reason why, like, there's a lot of things I've wanted to learn. Like, I've always wanted to learn how to do magic tricks and stuff like that, but then I realized, no, I don't want to know. I don't want to know what goes into it. I'd rather just be wowed by sheer stupid. And obviously there's actual demonic speed. Name that reference. That's absolutely more what this is about. You know what I mean? Know what I mean? Know what I mean? I know what I mean.
Take away from the mystery and whimsy that surrounds his character, and the bit that he's just really good at everything. So it creates this unknowing air that really works for his character and the tone of Black Butler. It's all in good fun, basically. The setup for the Red Butler arc is crucial because it goes to further establish the tone of the series as a whole and introduces us to very important characters like Undertaker and Grell, although at the start she is just a butler, but I think Sebastian knows there's more to this not so great butler than meets the eye.
Grell as a butler is a dude. Grell as the Grim Reaper is not? I think. I could be wrong. I don't know if I care.
Because when they first meet, He gives her a
I think I've decided I don't.
glance. At least that's how I interpret it. Maybe it's a suspicious glance. I'm not entirely sure how good Sebastian is at seeing a person and knowing they're not human or knowing what they are. It doesn't come up super often, but it comes up when convenient, and he does mention later that he did know from the start that Grell was not as she seemed. Who knows? It does seem that other creatures, such as Reapers, are better at sensing demons or abnormalities than demons are, but to be fair...
Is it? Is it? I mean, it would make sense. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. Is it? I'd be surprised because, like, you'd think that, like, a demon would be a lot more knowledgeable about, like, I mean, there's the Reaper's job is to deal with souls, and then you have a demon that's like a lack of one, I think? I really don't know how that souls works, if they have a soul, and that's what you sense. But absolutely, they both had to have been onto each other. Had to have.
I am referencing parts of the story that I don't clearly remember at the time of writing and recording this video. I've been sitting with Black Butler for far too long. Everything gets jumbled up in here. That's why I'm having to reread every chapter as I make these deep dives, so everything is fresh in the noggin. Also, can I just...
Yo, I feel that, which is why sometimes what I do is I just react to the lore. I don't know. Is it just me, or can anybody find the volumes of Black Butler, like, in stores anymore? Because I can't. They never have, like, one, like, they're always missing volume. Any volume past 1. They always have 1. Volume 1 of Black Butler, and then, like, volume, like, 12 and 27. And, like, nothing in between.
Just point out, this is the exact moment Grell fell in love.
So cute.
Now that Sebastian has things narrowed down to just one possible suspect, it's time for us to be introduced to the worst reoccurring character in the entire series, Viscount of Druid.
How dare you? Viscount Druid is the best character. He's amazing. He's a creep and a weirdo, but I love him. I love him. He deserves better.
Or known as Alistair Chamber, a nasty, nasty man. And I'm not...
True. I'm not defending anything that he has ever done. However...
I'm not even sorry to anyone who likes this character. His sole purpose is to be that comedic gag character that makes the readers uncomfortable at the same time. And I hate him.
True.
Okay, mini rant over. He's not really a gag character in this first bit, but when he shows back up again later, he kind of is.
He is. He's fan service for being an amazing character. You don't understand the subtle... I mean, you clearly just did, and you say you don't like him. I can understand. No, absolutely. I can absolutely understand why you don't like him. No, like, absolutely. No, I get it. But come on, man. We stand him.
Or at least he's treated that way in the anime, and, like, kind of in the musicals. He's one of those characters...
The musicals? I can't find those anywhere. Otherwise, I would have reacted to them by now.
That gets propped up to be a bad guy, but then he's never actually taken seriously. So, in my brain, that classifies him as a gag character just a bit. Now the rant is over. Viscount Druid is the man to be investigated. And, oh look, how convenient. He just so happens to be hosting a party that very evening. So the gang decides to infiltrate the party, and yes, we start to get snippets of fan service. Our young, manly male child, Ciel, has to go undercover, cross-dressing as a girl. Wow, how scandalous. I would like to remind y'all that Black Butler is published in a shonen magazine, so despite most of the English-speaking fan base being women, as far as I can tell, I do not speak Japanese. I don't know what the Japanese fan base looks like, but I would assume it is also predominantly women. So despite the fandom being predominantly women, this series is, at least on some level, targeted towards teen boys. A bit. I have seen some people say that even though Black Butler and a few
Yes,
other
what are you
manga
getting
series
at?
are published in shonen magazines, the target demographic is actually women. However, I don't know. If that were the case, why aren't they being published in shoujo or josei magazines? I have no clue.
Well, that doesn't mean that there isn't going to be fan service for a female audience, you know what I mean? Because, like, you get plenty of, like, modern media, like, anything that's, like, Marvel, DC, Star Wars. I mean, the main demographic is men. Teenage guys, honestly, is really the biggest demographic for anything like that. And yet, there's so much pandering to other demographics, good or bad, we can talk about later. It's trying to appeal to a wider audience, despite the fact that it is 80-90% one audience. So you go under a shonen magazine, right? Because that is the main demographic and get the most amount of people, but then also you add elements into the story that is made for other people who happen to enjoy it. That's the same kind of thing where my demographic for the main channel is heavily female. And then this audience, and then like some of the more recent videos that I've done on that channel have switched to guys, and it's just like, whoa. So there's a wide audience to enjoy everything. That does not change the fact that it's like 80% female. Except for on this channel. It is pretty much 60-40 for guys and gals.
But the fact that it is published in a shonen magazine tells me that someone is expecting teen boys to read this and be drawn to whatever is going on in this manga. So please don't forget this as we discuss some of the other scenes that pop up later. Like, these scenes were written with the intention of, or at least the thought of, somebody's gonna think this is for teen boys. Alright.
So that may be true. However, let's just look at Attack on Titan. It's shonen, so I don't really see a, like, M rating or anything like that for an age range. But the show is TV 14, and so is Attack on Titan. They're at the same level. Attack on Titan is very gory, and it is one of the greatest stories ever told, in my opinion, and it would not be nearly as good without some of the, like, really harsh and, like, terrible things that happen in it. And very you need the graphicness of everything to show the world that you're in. So, I'm only bringing this up because I have a feeling that there's some, like, really not great stuff that happens in this chapter and in other chapters. I'm curious if it has to do with how really terrible, despicable things that happen. So, if that's the case, I'm just putting it out there that it's not so much that it's meant to please young men. It's that this is a story meant for young men, but there's going to be graphic things in here to just show how bad things are.
I also want to point out that Madame Red explicitly states that the Viscount of Druid loves women of all ages, and, ma'am, what do you mean by that?
So true. Ma'am, what? Please explain. Hero?
What do you mean by that? After a few moments of Ciel experiencing gender dysphoria and Madame Red being horny on main, we get some classic
So gender dysphoria and being horny on main. Jeepus. That's thumbnail material, absolutely. Here, I'm sending snaps real quick. Wave to the camera. There you go. Wave. Here you are. You cutie patootie. You're a cutie patootie.
comedy. You know, that thing where someone says something that they really don't want to happen, and then said thing almost immediately happens. Lady Elizabeth is
Hold on, what did I
immediately
miss?
where someone says something that they really don't want to happen, and then said thing almost immediately happens.
Like the foreshadowing? The foreshadowing of Elizabeth seeing him like this? I know, I will admit, it was not like the greatest joke ever, but more foreshadowing than anything else. Which is a literary device. And just so you know, literary is about the biggest word I know. So, don't expect anything better.
Lady Elizabeth is such a wonderful girl. A very women-supporting...
Sorry, I just saw something catch my eye. And I don't know if you can see it on this page. Something just caught my... I can't tell you exactly what it was, but something definitely caught my eye, and I was very scared.
Women type of girl, which is all fine and good, except she also wants to compliment Ciel, as she's been complimenting every other cute woman in this party. Ciel is desperately trying to avoid her, while also trying to get an in with the Viscount, which ends up being easier than anticipated. Viscount Druent was so enamored by Ciel and Sebastian's dancing that he decided to approach Ciel first. Let's just lay some things out on the table first.
Okay, let's lay some stuff out. I'm ready.
Ciel is still 12 years old.
He is. But how is Viscount supposed to... What, is he supposed to ask a question? I shouldn't be making these jokes. However, I will say, this is the 1880s. Right? No. So Jack the Ripper happened in the 1880s. This is not taking place in the 1880s. Because... Ciel was born in 18... I thought he was 1885. I might be wrong about that. Ciel birthday. Oh, 1875. Oh. Then yes, that makes sense. Either way, there are the rules of the 1800s. Not trying to make I'm not trying. I should stop now. Editor, cut this. It's still not okay with me.
And I think he looks like it too.
He does. I shouldn't be trying to defend I shouldn't be trying to defend him like this. No.
Is a grown-ass man. And despite the popular misconception, it was not normal for grown men to be interested in children and young teens. Adults did not marry children, typically, and the idea that women got married as young teenagers during this time just isn't true, generally.
I would love to know that. Huh, that is interesting. All of that work, found out, yeah, actually. Usually about 21 to 28. All right, Viscount, I've stood up for you as long as I can, but now, this is yucky. This is yucky. Disgusting. Disgusting. You know what, Viscount? Look at me. Look at me. This is for you. This is for you, Viscount. In fact, 2 thumbs down for me. 2 thumbs down. Made me very disappointed.
Speaking. So now that we're all on the same page, Viscount of Druet compliments Ciel and gets way too close and handsy. First of all, they literally just met. Second of all, that's a child, my guy.
Come on.
You've got to know that.
Probably does.
I believe that this gross behavior of his here is used as narrative shorthand to show us that he is not a good guy. We see this all the time in media in general. Like, for example, in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Araki will often have his bad guys mistreating dogs, usually killing them. It's kind of become a meme that no dog is safe in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But Araki does this
Yep.
because that's
I remember that
something
meme.
that he sees as downright evil. He loves dogs, so in his mind, anyone who would harm a dog has got to be the scum of the earth.
That's so true. He's so based for that. So real and based for that assessment. Dogs are the best. Dogs rule. And you drool, bad guys. Bad guys, you, you drool. Riveting commentary.
So, when an author or mangaka wants us to immediately see a character as horrible and evil, they will often show the readers through little behaviors that are universally seen as disgusting and downright awful and evil that don't require much context. So, animal abuse, pedophilia, those don't require a lot of context to understand.
Listen, I'm no expert in the rules, but like if I was to create a tier list of like deplorable acts, I don't know, as I feel like animal abuse, pedophilia, definitely like just barely scraping in above animal abuse. No, I don't. I feel like I know that's not what was meant, but that's just kind of what it sounded like.
It is a bad action. Whereas
Absolutely.
something like manipulation or abuse might might need a little bit of context.
Yeah, there's definitely a morally gray area when it comes to that. And then Lelouch, like most of the characters in Black Butler, for sure.
For the reader to fully understand.
Definitely not
So
good.
That's what I think is going on here. Just a little bit of shorthand for us to see that, hey, Viscount of Druid's a little bit of a predator. Not a good guy.
Not a
Definitely
good
not
guy. Big time predator, in fact. I
Ciel is-
think big bad. No good. No. Not inviting him to the family picnic. That's for sure. No way. He he specifically asks for like the tiny wiener hot dogs, like the itty bitty ones. Like that's the kind of guy he is. I don't think that's what anybody wants. In their pool parties. You know what I mean?
Is rightfully upset and uncomfortable with all this, seen by the way that he wipes his hand after the Viscount kisses it, or the way that he vows to put that bastard in the ground himself. Lizzie is also still trying to compliment Ciel, so he's under a lot of stress. The Viscount is suspiciously inviting Ciel to do something, and Lizzie is also approaching. So, like, this is it. This is how Ciel dies. He has got to get in there. He's rushing the Viscount. So, yeah, he is kind of playing into, like, the flirting it up, but it is kind of what he has to do, and it's still weird.
I always thought it was funnier that Ciel was it almost seemed like Ciel was like, I would rather get assaulted sexually or full on just horrible deplorable things. I'd rather have that happen than Lizzie find out who I am. So Black Butler not pro trans rights. Sorry.
The Viscount is falling for it. But we see in a minute that he has ulterior motives. But how is Ciel gonna get away from Lizzie? Sebastian does magic tricks, which distracts Lizzie, allowing for Ciel to finally make some progress.
Let's
in his
go.
investigation, which means disappearing behind a hidden door with the Viscount, while Sebastian does a little bit of magic. And, oh, Ciel has found himself in a predicament. One that smells like being drugged by a very strange and creepy man.
Drugs. You remember that really terrible live action Black Butler movie? I'm just thinking about the every time my brain is going to the parallels to that. It mentally scarred me, that movie. Yeah, it absolutely did.
This next chapter takes a step back from the cliffhanger of the last, as we become subjected to the worst kind of fan service in this series, and the types of thing that Black Butler has become known for in the greater anime community. The corset scene?
Yes, yes, the corset is gonna make me die. Yes, the corset scene.
The fact that this scene was written for teen boys and not freaky Fujoshi girlies, Miss Yana Taboso was wildin'. I don't care who you are, what you
Wilden. I just thought it was funny. I thought it was hilarious.
ship and what you think about this scene. It was weird to include. It's almost Sebastian Fujo bait in a way, kind of. It unnecessarily sexualizes Ciel, something that happens again and again in the manga, but more so in official artwork. And yeah, it's a haha funny that makes you think something naughty is going on, only to reveal that it's just a silly misunderstanding on your part. But it's inappropriate, and it kind of, the first page, it frames it like Ciel is having sex. It frames it that way. It's
Of course
not
it
me
is. It's a
misunderstanding.
setup to a joke.
It's me being led to believe that's what's going on before we get before it's revealed, before the what am I
The punchline. It's called a punchline.
trying to say? It's a metaphor. Before the tablecloth gets yanked out from under you, I don't know. The floor gets ripped from under you.
Punchline. There's setup. And it was something else. Lol, you thought. But it was, but like, I get it that it's like, yeah, but like, you intentionally did it, but it just sounds like your butt hurt. That there was a totally epic pwned you joke that you fell for. And honestly, we all fell for it. Some of us even liked it. Some of us didn't like it for weird reasons. We don't talk about those people. I make fun of those people.
inappropriate. I would argue that it also doesn't match the tone of this series so far, but earlier chapter cover art has weird sexual tones to it.
I will be honest, that's not. I don't like that. I don't like that. That's not good. I don't like it.
I don't care what you have to say about it. If Ciel is drawn doing something that I, as a 25-year-old grown person, would do to feel like the hottest, sexiest person in the room, then maybe a 12-year-old shouldn't be drawn in that context. It doesn't really sit well with me. It never really has, and it's only recently that I've fully figured out why it feels so off and strange. Sorry, but if I'm going to engage with Black Butler, I need to rant about this when it's relevant. Also, wild that this 12-year-old boy is being sexualized for other teen boys.
I will concede that it is weird to ever sexualize a 12-year-old. I will say that instance with the corset scene is just funny. I feel like that's not a big deal, but I think there's a bigger deal, which is you start putting this one-off that's like, okay, this was just a joke, it's just a one-off. But then you take another one-off, it's like, oh, but that's just a joke. But then you start doing it a couple of times, and it's not just a joke anymore. Now we got a pattern. So I will agree with that. I will say that's a little sus. At minimum. At minimum, sus.
However, I do recognize that despite the intended demographics, Black Butler has a strong female audience, and maybe it was that way from the start, or maybe Yana intended to write a manga that could appeal to all demographics in a way. And I imagine that does influence the type of fan service that gets included, but it's still weird and nasty. We then shift from fan service to the revelation that Ciel has been captured and tied up, and the Viscount is auctioning him off to a bunch of weirdos. However, Ciel is unfazed, which honestly does feel a bit out of character for him, but at this time I'm thinking of characterization that hasn't quite happened yet in the manga.
Okay, yeah, I was just about to bring up this point. So I was going to see this from two different sides. One side is that Ciel would be phased by this due to trauma. The second one would be, I mean, just previously, he was held captive, gun to his head, beaten. Like, crazy. Should be unfazed. Also, like, the confidence of a demon butler, like, literally being right there for you has got to be insane.
But to be fair, Ciel is kind of unfazed because he knows that Sebastian is just a call away.
There we go.
And then we get a better understanding of how their contract works, and the fact that they have a powerful contract due to the mark being placed in Ciel's eye. The more obvious the mark, the more power the contract holds.
Oh, that didn't get explained until here. Oh.
We also get confirmation that Ciel is tied to Sebastian forever, and Sebastian promises to take him to the deepest pits of hell. Because that's a comforting
You pinky promise.
plot. Anyway,
What? What?
they have to rush out of there because the Yard, aka the police, were on their way. And that's case closed. Objection! Jack the Ripper has struck again. Ciel has realized that they were either wrong about the Viscount, or there were more players involved. We also see at the start
Ciel has to deal with something that I don't have to deal with, but something that I know a lot of people, especially people watching this channel, something that I don't have to deal with, and something that Mel doesn't have to deal with. Being wrong. And I feel for you.
start of the chess symbolism that becomes a staple of the series, especially the anime, specifically like seasons 1 and 2. We also get to see Madame Red be a bit vulnerable and real with Ciel. She, rightfully so, laments about how Ciel has become a member of the underworld, working as the Queen's watchdog. However, she hits the nail right on the head when she speculates that the main reason Ciel is taking up this role is so that he can avenge the death of his parents, to which Ciel denies, stating that revenge won't change anything and is just a selfish waste. And honestly, there is a lot to unpack here. If I may use future knowledge, those who have read at least through the Emerald Witch arc know that Ciel struggles with survivor's guilt. He views himself as a selfish person for having been the sole survivor and doing what it takes to survive afterwards. And we do know that a part of the terms of his contract with Sebastian is avenging his family's deaths, essentially. He can seek revenge, but also feel that it's a selfish waste. That won't change anything. He's a bit self-aware.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing, is knowing, like, you can know what you're doing. In fact, I'd argue that you always know when you're doing something that's wrong, especially when it's big and you have a constant reminder who does all of your dishes.
And also incredibly self-deprecating. Madame Red continues to reminisce on Ciel's childhood, even mentioning when he was born. We also learned that Madame Red was a nurse who couldn't have children of her own. She confesses that she sees Ciel as her own son, which isn't too far-fetched for an aunt or uncle to feel for their nieces or nephews, especially if said aunt or uncle was very present throughout the child's life. Madame Red pleads with Ciel to abandon his role in the underworld. However, he insists that he's made his choice, and that's the end of the conversation. Madame Red is genuinely worried for her nephew, even going as far as entrusting Sebastian to be there for Ciel when she can't. Afterwards, Ciel and Sebastian continue
Which is foreshadowing, knowing that she's not going to live very long.
to discuss the investigation. The math isn't mathing. By all means, the Viscount should have been the culprit, but he clearly wasn't. Sebastian
So here's kind of what I don't like about Black Butler. Besides the pedophilia. But we forget about that, you know what I mean? We just forget about that. What I don't like is there's always an interesting, like, series of things that could happen when it comes to Black Butler, when it comes to the mystery. A whole deep underground ring that was found just now. And you know who was behind all of it? Doesn't matter, because it was always just a demon it was always just a Grim Reaper the entire time. It's kind of like, so I get the idea that it's like you're introducing this underground ring of people that need to be taken care of at some point, and it's introducing a main villain. But then you're going to go and you're going to introduce the Reapers, and eventually you're going to introduce the Grim Reaper, and he's going to be the ultimate bad guy throughout the entire thing, who ends up being like Bowser and Mario. You're going to like defeat him like 12 different times. He's going to keep bouncing to different worlds until you finally beat him. That's just kind of the part where that's just kind of a bit I don't like. It's like, okay, so here's this interesting reason, something to get invested in, something spooky. And it's like, and you know who's behind all of it? The same guy who's been behind it the whole time. And then you would ask me, what about JoJo's? What about Dio always being the bad guy, always coming back? I don't like that either. But then who would be the bad guy? What about Palpatine coming back? You've been the bad guy the entire time. Now you're going to tell me that it's going to be some other bad guy? Yeah. Yeah, same lineage. Just different people. It's the same JoJo's. Either end the story or come up with a new villain. A new, bigger, badder, and then bring them back in the way end. And you could say, oh, it was all part of my plan. Sure, fine, but at least I didn't have to sit through like 7 to 10 seasons of the same bad guy over and over and over and over and over and over again, especially in a mystery show. Which is kind of like, it's kind of like Glass Onion and Knives Out. Like, people will say that's a masterpiece because it's a subversion of expectations, because it's exactly who you thought it was going to be. But you didn't think it was going to be that person because that'd be too obvious, but it was actually that person the whole time, which is great storytelling. And then I say, no, that's bad writing, disguised as good writing.
Sebastian has a moment of implying he knows something, making Ciel decide if he wants to act on what Sebastian knows. You know, I wrote a little bit here before I finished reading this story arc about how I've known this story for 12 years and the twist of this arc, so I genuinely couldn't tell what a first-time reader was supposed to infer from this conversation. Is it implying that Jack the Ripper isn't human? Probably. It definitely is. Like, the next couple of chapters solidify that. Maybe I should finish reading story arc before I start writing my script for these things, but you know, it is what it is. We've also gotten a couple other hints as to who or what could be Jack the Ripper. More so who than what, but if there's one thing that I can admire about Sebastian's character, it's his commitment to the bit, even down to playing along with Ciel's themed monologues.
I do love the commitment to the bit with Sebastian, which is the one thing that I really was slightly disappointed about, again, with Public School arc, is didn't see enough of him. Because the best part is a dynamic between the two of them. And it's so perfectly exemplified, especially in the beginning, first season and all that, because it is just straight up the characters being them at their best, in my opinion. So far, we're gonna see just how crazy it gets.
It's like a cool thing, but like kind of in the way that a parent or adult family member would play along with the child. Like, I have a nephew who really likes Paw Patrol, and so he gets to talking about Paw Patrol, and I play along, much in the same way that Sebastian is playing along here with the chess symbolism. I think I've been spending too much time re-entering the fandom space, specifically on Tumblr. A lot of the people I follow now...
No, not Tumblr.
Fans
No.
on Tumblr are very into Dad Bastion, where they really play up the parent-child dynamic of Ciel and Sebastian, and it's so fun. we're just
Sorry, I was hearing weird noises, and it turns out your mom's outside. It's just so loud, man. Like every step, it's crazy.
everyone's having a great time. Why couldn't we do this in 2015? Why couldn't the fandom be like this the whole time?
And do what? Also, I'm sorry for the compromising pause. Instead of what? Instead of shipping the two of them? Is that your problem? Because if that's your problem, then I agree. Then absolutely, 100%. I totally agree.
Ciel and Sebastian go undercover again to find Jack the Ripper, this time posing as common folk in the East End, standing by where Sebastian is certain the killer will strike again. We then get a bit of flashback clarifying that, yes, Sebastian is implying that the killer isn't human. We also get a bit of Sebastian being a technicality bitch and Ciel getting frustrated with him.
Some technicality bitches are great. Gotta love them. Some of them I hate. So, finding loopholes and being technical is fun. I am that person, okay? However, people who make that their personality, that is frustrating to no end. Smash like and subscribe if you know someone who's like that.
Which is iconic, and I kind of love their spiteful dynamic. Oh, somehow our suspect slipped right past them. I also love that despite everything, Sebastian goes out of his way to keep Ciel from witnessing the horrors. But he'd seen enough to have some kind of reaction. It doesn't happen often, but it becomes established that when Ciel is under a lot of stress and suffers something like a panic attack, he throws up. I'm not sure if that's what's supposed to be going on right here, but I do want to point it out for the sake of building a profile of our little Earl here. And surprise, surprise!
Is it? Because I think that he does, actually. He does that a lot. Anyway.
Our killer is the butler Grell! And there's more to this person than meets the eye. She is an icon. And yes, if you haven't gathered already, I subscribe to the trans Grell truth. I don't care that the other characters in this series refer to her as a man. Well, I do care in the sense that I think they're being transphobic, but neither here nor there. Grell?
I subscribe to not fan editing as much as possible. So if the other characters are calling Grell a man, because the writer calls Grell a man, even though does Grell ever refer to herself as a woman? I think Grell does. I don't respect Grell. I love Grell, but I have no respect for Grell. Do you really want to show Grell respect? That is basically the real question. That is the real question.
Grell refers to herself as a woman, and that's enough for me. There's also the fact that Yana Toboso herself, the creator of Grell, has stated that Grell is in fact a trans woman. Not sure if anyone here will take issue with that, but also, if you're transphobic, what are you even doing here? Like, honestly. Anyway, Sebastian and Grell were both shocked to encounter each other. More so the fact that Grell was shocked to
I am here for the lore, not for the gay. That is what I am doing here. Thank you. Thank you for coming to the dock.
encounter a demon, and Sebastian was shocked to have encountered a Grim Reaper, their first times. And we get the reveal. I kind of spoiled this. We get the reveal that Grell is a Grim Reaper, and supposedly a neutral force. That's what she's supposed to be, but that's not what she's being. Her lack of neutrality is all due to her admiration and love for Madame Red. Yes, that's right. Ciel's aunt is part of this as well. What a surprise. It's also revealed that each of the victims had had abortions at the hospital where Madame Red worked. Now that everything's out in the open, Madame Red will not surrender. And it's now time for everyone to roll initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you couldn't tell by now, I'm one of those people. However, not without a bit of banter between Grell and Sebastian. Grell is a typical fangirl when it comes to Sebastian. She's majorly in love with the idea of him. However, he is disgusted by her. Be it her poor work as a butler, her flamboyant aesthetics, or another less savory option. I'm not saying Sebastian is transphobic, but
Sebastian's a
Ciel-
demon. Who cares, dude? I'm just saying. Like, who cares? Also, Grell is also... I don't know if I'd say Grell is a neutral force. Grell is a neutral force for Sebastian. And then later on, the Grim Reaper's like, get a grip on Grell, you know, and stop doing this madness. But, like, literally not a good person at all. So, I don't know. I just feel like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't know. That's my opinion.
then gives the orders to Sebastian to hunt his aunt and her so-called butler. Things are getting a little heated.
Yo.
This next chapter opens on a flashback of Madame Red. She's always hated her red hair and the color red in general. However, that all changed when she got a compliment from a man. Back to the present. It's now time for the action.
That's nice. If you're a redhead and you're watching this, I don't have any good news for you. I'm sorry.
Now, I'll be honest, the action scenes in Black Butler usually serve as a testament to how strong
I'm afraid to say anything to you because I feel like you're gonna suck my soul through like the camera screen. You know what I mean? I'm not okay with that. And the fact that I am currently still standing here means that my soul was either taken a while ago or I haven't offended any of you, which means please smash like and subscribe.
Sebastian is, and also how strong Grim Reapers can be. However, there are some things from this battle worth mentioning. First off, when Sebastian gets hit by Grell's scythe, we see his cinematic record. For all intents and purposes, the cinematic record is a person's memories, an interpretation of your life flashing before your eyes when you die or have a near-death experience.
Which is a very cool story dynamic, a cool plot device to have.
It's also a tool that the Grim Reapers use to judge humans who are scheduled to die. It's kind of like a concept that the Grim Reapers will look through your cinematic record and decide if it's time for you to die or if you should be allowed to keep living. However, we don't really see Reapers decide that a human can keep living, so I'm not really sure what it would take, what they would have to see. But it is a concept that this series throws out there as a possibility. However, if you are deemed ready to die, or it's your time, you don't deserve to live any longer, a Grim Reaper will sever your cinematic record. And that's the end. The end of it. Basically, the cinematic records are just strips of film, and I think conceptually, after your last memory, it would be empty film, but they cut it there, so that's where the movie of your life ends.
And there's nothing else to that plot device. That will never come up later. I'm sure it will never ever come up later. Especially not in Book of Atlantic. I don't know why I'd bring that up specifically, but it definitely doesn't happen then.
This is an important concept for later on in the story.
No, it's not.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have rambled about the workings of film and the records. Anyway.
Well, you see, we have to know about the beginnings of the cinematic record. The cinematic record is what happens when the Grim Reaper cuts you open and is like, Dewey spiritually cuts you open, looks at who you are as a person, and judges whether or not you are fit to die yet. However, to really understand the cinematic record, we need to go back to 1939, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland.
While Sebastian and Grell are engaged in battle, Madame Red and Ciel have a confrontation of their own. Ciel really just wants to understand where his aunt is coming from, but she is certain that he won't get it. She even stoops as low as yelling that she wished he had never been born, which seems to really upset Ciel for reasons and insecurities we aren't quite privy to yet. Oh, and the icing on this depressing cake? Madame Red also attempts to murder Ciel, causing Sebastian to rush over to stop her. However, Ciel doesn't want Sebastian to kill her, and we see that Madame Red is all bark and no bite when it comes to Ciel, which, yeah, that's her family, and she does genuinely care for him. However, Grell grows dissatisfied with this display of humanity and ends Madame Red herself, exposing her cinematic records, providing motivation to Madame Red's killing spree.
Yeah, like I said, it is a great plot device to like really give you a character backstory. You know, that typical anime one where it's like, oh man, I love this character. I hope that he's gonna be able to fight off the bad guy and become the greatest Hokage. But like, then the next episode happens and it's a backstory. It's a backstory about his family, talking about how he's gonna survive and live on to have the family name. And there's a couple shots of an empty swing set, which has more screen time than even some characters. It's a great way to do that. It's a great way to do that exact thing.
Now, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really sure here if Ciel and Sebastian can see the cinematic records, or if it's just something Grell can see, and it's a fun way to
What?
go into flashbacks for the reader. Madame Red, or Angelina, was Rachel's younger sister, and she adored her sister. Angelina was pretty insecure about her looks, but was aiming to be a doctor when she grew up. However, her insecurities began to melt away after meeting and falling in love with Vincent Phantomhive. Much to her dismay, Vincent fell in love with Rachel instead, and they got married. And
Is that what happened in the show? For some reason, I have a weird memory that what happened in the show is Vincent fell in love with Angelina, and then for some reason was like, nah, I'm gonna marry Rachel instead. Like I feel like there was a not explained reason. Maybe it was just deciding that, you know, one was a friend and then the other one was a girlfriend. A girlfriend. But for some reason I had a weird memory that is not what happened in the show.
later gave birth to Ciel. Angelina spent a lot of time around the new Phantomhive family, trying her best to manage her jealousy and just enjoying spending time around the people she loved most, even if they didn't love her in the same way. Well, except for Rachel. I'm pretty sure Rachel loved her in the same way, because, you know, they're siblings. Angelina found herself going to parties more often despite previously not enjoying them. They weren't really her cup of tea. But now she goes to parties all the time, and she's a hoot. And she ends up meeting a man who she marries. He was nice and understanding of the fact that Angelina was in love with someone else who was essentially out of reach. But she was happy enough.
However, what he can't handle, not being able to have kids. To the
And
streets.
her and her husband ended up getting pregnant. But before she could give birth, they were hit by a runaway carriage.
Oh, that's what happened. Yeah, I feel like I just missed it, but I thought that in the anime, he actually married Angelina. Vincent married Angelina. They couldn't have a kid, and then Vincent left her for Rachel. Which doesn't make any sense. It never did to me. This makes way more sense. And I think I misinterpreted something when I watched it the first, second, third, fourth, fifth time.
Killing her husband and injuring her to the point of needing her uterus removed and losing the child. Rachel tried her best to cheer Angelina up, inviting her to celebrate her recovery once she was let out of the hospital. However, the day that was planned to celebrate was also Ciel's 10th birthday, and the Phantom Hive Manor went up in flames that day, painting the sky in red, a color that Angelina hated, then grew to love, but now resents once again. This woman truly can't catch a break. Now that Angelina has lost everything, her only solace in life is being able to work. Something that keeps her busy and distracted from her misery. However, she couldn't run from her problems when her patients were throwing away the things that she so desperately wanted. Women coming in for abortions when Angelina couldn't have children despite how badly she wanted it. Her jealousy festered, and she took that resentment and killed with it. Her anger driving her to tear these women apart, hating them for taking their fertility for granted. Angelina's killing spree put her on the path to meet Grell, who understood. While Angelina's rage isn't fueled by gender dysphoria, there's still jealousy there. Still resentment due to what she can't have no matter how badly she wants it. And shortly after their chance meeting, Ciel comes back with a mysterious butler? However, Angelina's jealousy has grown to taint every aspect of her life.
I'm sorry, I don't have any commentary. It's a good backstory.
Ciel isn't her sister or Vincent, the man that she loved. Sure, she loved her nephew and was happy to see him, but he's not who she truly desired. And so she promises not to yield. Not anymore. And her life comes to an end. Covered in red.
And she went on a killing spree for 2 more years.
Grell laments on how Madame Red gave in to silly emotions, and how she had broken the rules for her. Grell takes Madame Red's coat, which becomes a staple in her design from this moment forward. Ciel, having just witnessed the gruesome death of his aunt...
You could say the grim death. Nah, you're right, that's stupid.
Reminds Sebastian that his orders were to hunt down Jack the Ripper, which includes Grell, who is still, available to be hunted. Their fight is
Alive.
pretty action-packed. Sebastian has
Not
finally found
dead.
an opponent that he has to try against. One that could very well kill him. However, his loyalty to Ciel and their contract fills him with the confidence he needs to win. He must win the fight. That's what was expected of him. And here we have further...
And if he couldn't catch so much as a Grim Reaper covered in red, well, what kind of a butler would he be?
establishment of just how far Sebastian has to go to protect Ciel and just how deep this contract binds. Sebastian is contractually obligated to protect and help Ciel, even when potentially facing his own demise. The two continue to battle as Grell gushes about how much she has grown to like him, despite her knowing Sebastian will never like her in the same way, or at all even. Much to Sebastian's dismay, she compares their relationship to the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet, since a demon and a reaper are naturally at odds. I also...
Because, yep, and because Grell is literally crazy. Not a sane individual. Let's just put that out there. Grell, a lot bit cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
really love
A few fries short of a Happy Meal. You know what I'm saying?
the tidbit here about how Sebastian is incapable of love. His eyes are tarnished, as Grell puts it, due to his...
Tarnished. I've been playing Elden Ring. You guys ever play Elden Ring? You ever heard of this niche game, Elden Ring? I'm playing that in my spare time. I really want to play it right now. Now that you reminded me of it. Scratching at it. Nah, I want to watch this and hang out with you guys. Smash like for hanging out. Leave a comment. How's your day been? Let me know. Been having a good day? Good? A good week? A good month of January is such a slow time, you know? How's your January been? My January has been amazing. It's been wonderful. Barely any work to do, which means I have no money in my bank account. So please subscribe. Check out Patreon. I don't have any.
His devilish nature, his relationships with others have, does, and will lack love. The only purpose here is defilement. And just as it seems that the fight is reaching its climax, Grell slices Sebastian open. Sebastian, just having been sliced open by a Reaper's death scythe, now has a cinematic record out on display. A recap of his daily life as a butler. And I really do mean a recap. The snippets we see are literally just things that happened in the previous initial story arc.
Yeah, so I am really curious about the backstory of Sebastian. So, trying to do research for the character, I found out that Sebastian is at least 5,000 years old because the oldest mention that he has in any media that I can find is personally knowing a pharaoh that was around in about 1420 BC era. So it'd be 350 or 3,400. 3,400 years. So at least 3,400 years. I think. Unless there was something else that I found. I know I left a comment somewhere on my channel about his age. It might have been in how to do the impression. It might have been sometimes I have like a couple of interesting nuggets. You can always check that out on the main channel. How to do a Sebastian impression from yours truly. Anyway, very old. And I would love to know his backstory. And this is a perfect way to have that happen. But I think that it is a perfect time for the comedy, like the subtle comedy of Black Butler, which is just like, no, I want something interesting. This is literally just day-to-day activities.
And it's lacking in the drama and insight that Grell was expecting, leaving her utterly disappointed. This moment does give Sebastian time to get back on his feet and recompose himself. And he decides to finally use a method that he had been avoiding. This revelation causes Grell to assume, like us, that Sebastian is going to take this fight seriously and maybe even use more of his demonic power, maybe even get a little bit of a taste of demon form. Not sure what to expect.
Never will.
But we're
so
all
sad.
expecting some fun demon shenanigans, right? Wrong. Sebastian goes for a more logistical approach, jamming Grell's scythe with his tailcoat. And this seems to work, turning the battle in Sebastian's favor, going from an actual battle to just beating Grell up. But just as Sebastian goes in to deliver that final fatal blow using Grell's scythe, he's intercepted. William T. Spears, a
Let's go, William.
stoic Reaper, who is also Grell's supervisor and a fan favorite. I don't know, I didn't realize I liked this character until now. I'm like hyping him up. He's fun. Also, yeah, in Black Butler, the Grim Reaper world reeks of corporate bull. William...
Yeah, no, he's... my card. He's so good. He's so good for character building. In the entire supernatural world is he perfectly embodies just the corporatism of the Grim Reaper lifestyle and job. And that is such an interesting and funny characterization of Reapers that Yana came up with. Then a perfect person to embody that. It actually is one of my favorite aspects of Black Butler. It is just a job. There's just Butler out here being a freaking a doof. A doofenshmirtz over here. A Laminator 3000, you know what I mean?
apologizes, but we can tell by the way he talks to Sebastian, literally calling him a noxious beast, that Reapers really do not like demons in general, which I get it. When your sole job is to collect human souls and a demon is going around eating souls, complicates things. Sebastian takes it in strides, though. He subtly compares Madame Red's situation with that of someone like Ciel, so overcome with despair and misery that they'll do anything to get out of it, even digging themselves into a deeper hole if that's what they think will help. The light at the end of the tunnel, no matter how faint or fake, will always tempt a human. And yeah, Madame Red is drawn to Grell. Grell seems like the light at the end of the tunnel, someone who could help her feel better. Ciel makes a contract with Sebastian at his lowest moment, hoping that Sebastian can help him feel better. It is the same. It's the same, but it's different.
OMG, guys. They're literally the same. Can we get an F in the chat?
But it's the same. After things wrap up with the Reapers, we return to Ciel, who has just gone through a lot. Not only did he learn that his aunt was a serial killer, but she also attempted to kill him and poked at one of his greatest insecurities.
Guys, what would you do if you found out that your aunt was actually one of, if not the most infamous serial killer of all time at that time, but doing it for years, and then she tried to kill you? You probably wouldn't feel too good, would you? No, that's what I thought.
And then was brutally murdered right in front of him. It's a lot to process, and he's doing his best, I guess. But now it's time for him and Sebastian to return home to the townhouse. Our next chapter actually opens with a group of children wondering why so many people are at the church that's nearby. And then the Undertaker kind of shows up to answer their questions. It's a noblewoman's gala, the last grandest ceremony of her life. Angelina's funeral. Ciel makes a big display that parallels his father's first compliment to her, bringing a red dress up to her casket, claiming that that's what suits her best. Not the white flowers that decorate her funeral, or the plain clothes that she's being buried in, but the color of licorice that blazes the earth. Which just so happens to be the title of this stage musical that adapts the story arc. Fun fact. Sebastian then releases Red
Where are you finding this? Where?
Rose Petals, or on High School Host Club style. We then
Yes,
fast
or
forward to the burial, or after the burial. Lau is curious as to if Ciel will tell the Queen the true identity of Jack the Ripper, basically ratting on his family. However, Ciel states that there is no need to, since the problem has been handled. Lau then talks about how he should be careful not to fall on the Queen and Ciel's bad side. However, Ciel mentions that opium is starting to be a problem, and it's only a matter of time before he'll have to shut down Lau's operation. Lau honestly takes it like a champ, stating he'll just find another business. Ciel and Sebastian then visit the grave of the woman whose murder they tried to prevent, and we learn that Ciel is the one who paid for and organized her grave. Honestly, I think this moment is used to humanize Ciel. Up until this point, he's mostly been hyped.
There are a lot of very good moments of humanizing Ciel, which have been done very tactfully, you know? They've always kind of just come... So here's the weird thing. Most humanizations of Ciel have either come at slight, like... In the previous episode, Ciel was very afraid to go to sleep, and he wanted Sebastian there with him. And that was good humanization, good characterization. The weird part is you see the humanization of Ciel usually at the ends of these arcs, and then you kind of have to ask the question, is he doing this because he's a good person, or is he doing this simply out of looks and out of, trying to look good and not out of doing it out of the good of his heart? You know what I mean? It's always an interesting question.
Up as a cruel and ruthless kid who's making a name for himself in the adult world. But there's more to him than meets the eye. He's full of guilt and feels a sense of responsibility for the bad things that happen around him, stating that he could have saved her life if he tried, but he didn't consider her life when they were in the thick of it. His main priority was just capturing Jack the Ripper. Ciel and Undertaker talk about his position being collared by his family duties to the Queen, and Undertaker gives Ciel a warning not to lose himself or his life to this duty. It's unclear
Duty.
why, but Undertaker is invested to some degree in Ciel's survival, even inviting him to visit anytime. Another moment that I find worth talking about,
Another moment that I'm sure will never come up ever again,
is when Sebastian calls Ciel kind. It's a fact that Ciel has gone out of his way to do something nice. He didn't have to arrange for Mary Kelly's burial, but he did.
Sorry, there's nothing there. There's nothing weird that happened just there.
There's a shred of niceness and humanity in him. But Ciel's adamant that he is not deserving of such a compliment. He insists that he is not kind. Now, there's not much to work with yet in the manga for analyzing his character, and when I say yet, I mean as far as we've covered in this deep dive. But I think this does show a lot of what Ciel is struggling with. He has suffered through something that makes him incapable of thinking of himself in a positive light. Sebastian then suggests that he calls Ciel a coward, another thing that upsets him. Another insecurity of his, perhaps? Sebastian wonders why Ciel didn't shoot Madame Red when she attempted to attack him. He pokes and prods at Ciel, asking if he had hesitated because he couldn't do it. He could willingly make decisions that resulted in a stranger's death, but he could not pull out his gun and cause the death of someone he cared for. However, Ciel flips this on its head and brings up their contract, laying out on the table for the readers that Sebastian has to keep Ciel alive.
I wouldn't say that he flips it on its head. He answers with a non... It's kind of a non-answer, you know? It's more of a loophole answer. It's not a direct response. Because obviously he didn't want to kill his aunt, and Sebastian's poking and prodding, being a general dick. But, yeah, I wouldn't say it's flipping it on his head. He's just trying to not seem weak in front of Sebastian. And there was the whole bit at the end of season 1, which I have no idea if it's canon or not. But the whole part about it was Sebastian was left Ciel's side because Ciel was not trying to fulfill his end of the bargain, trying to get himself killed or something he just wasn't being. He was like, "You've lost your edge. You're not the same person I wanted to eat so long ago."
Until he reaches his goals, and Sebastian can consume his soul. Ciel then follows up with the fact that he knew she wouldn't be able to actually go through with killing him, and that he also needed to keep her alive to be properly judged, and, for the yard to save a little bit of face. We then get more chess symbolism. However, I urge you to take what Ciel is saying with a grain of salt. He claims that he will not hesitate to do what is necessary for his goals, even if that means collecting a pile of corpses under his throne. He'll continue to manipulate his pawns until the end. Ciel is 12 years old, mind you. He's clearly gone through something and is now talking big. I see this as less of a testament of how cruel he can be and more of him trying to affirm to himself that that's just how things are. And he needs.
I think that's a significantly better way to look at it than how I was always looking at it. I was always looking at it in the way that he was like swearing that he would allow corpses to pile up if in his wake if he needed to. Um, and that was always a part that I felt like we were missing from Black Butler that I loved about the first season, but him just talking big to reassure himself makes so much more sense. It really does.
Needs to be that cruel to survive, which in a sense is true. And
It is true. It is true, especially for the line of work that he does, and the kind of unsavory folk that like he doesn't just find unsavory folk. Let's just say that. We've already established earlier on in this episode. He does not. There's an entire underground network.
That's also the version of Ciel that Sebastian is cultivating. Ciel then gives Sebastian an order to always stay by his side, which is honestly a bit redundant. But
it is. I've always
how
thought that.
Insecure and afraid he really is deep down.
Yep.
He needs affirmations that those closest to him will remain by his side, even when he knows that they're already bound by a contract. Sebastian humors him though. The demon will always remain by Ciel's side, waiting for instruction.
Thoughts? I have them. All right, let's.
With this being
let's
the
go.
first main story arc in the series, it has a lot to set up and reinforce. After spending the first 5 chapters of the manga setting up Sebastian as the most perfect being to exist, it was rather refreshing to see him struggle in a fight. Even if he did win said fight in the end, it wasn't without effort. The Red Butler arc sees our main characters struggle in a way that makes them feel very human. I know it's ironic because Sebastian's not a human, but struggle is something that is very human regardless of the aspect of humanity of your.
I will say that as opposed to the first arc, he was an unstoppable force. Everything was easily handled by him. And now that we've introduced a character and now a series of characters that can actually go toe to toe with him is much more interesting. Now, I would like to see him just be in general like an absolute monster, slaying hundreds like he did in the first arc. I will say having like an actual genuine fight was a very needed thing.
Your characters. Does that make sense? I went off script there, so I'm sorry if that didn't make sense. While we may not know much about what Ciel's deal is just yet, we can infer a lot of how he feels by the way he thinks and his actions thus far. Ciel cares deeply about those he loves, but he also feels the need to put up a cold, uncaring front in order to survive. I also think he puts up walls between him and Sebastian to protect himself. Sebastian saw him at his worst, and is committing to keeping Ciel in this pit of misery in order to flavor his soul. And while Ciel may hold a lot of power, I don't think he feels that he deserves it, and still feels powerless. So he wants to appear stronger to those he is supposed to have power over, and that includes Sebastian. It's also just embarrassing to be known and vulnerable, especially to a demon who.
I was about to say it to have vulnerabilities and showcase them not only to a demon but also just having vulnerabilities as a 12-year-old. I remember being a 12-year-old guy. There's puberty hits. Like you're not a good person. I'm not a good person then. I didn't start being a better person until after high school. There's a good break. A good long section of angst and stuff, and doing everything you can to appear as somebody you're not. Doing everything you can to fit under some umbrella. You want to be known as the tough guy. Or some people are like, I want to be the funny guy, or I want to be the the class clown. I want to be the emo kid. I want to be the one who is some people are like, I want to be known as the person who's victimized all the time. And that everybody's trying to figure out who they are. And the last thing that anyone ever wants to have happen at that age is to find out that they're vulnerable to things.
Who doesn't quite get human emotions and thinks you're stupid for not wanting to kill your family members. Now,
Based.
before we really wrap up the Red Butler deep dive, we actually have one last chapter to look at. Another one of those breather, light-hearted chapters before we move into the next story arc. And as much as these chapters can feel like filler, we actually get a lot of insight into the characters. So I'm going to talk about it.
Yeah, so this is something I love about Black Butler that, especially in the beginning, is that, like, they would, like, dump lore on you, give you a breather. Dump lore, give you a breather. That is something that I wish that Hell of a Boss did a little bit more of. Gave you, like, full-on breather episodes. That doesn't mean that you can't have, like, actual character backstory. What it means is, don't make me feel invested and make me feel emotions. I need a breather.
We start off with Ciel having a nightmare, and in his sleepy haze, he pulls a gun on Sebastian. Not
I don't
fully
remember this
aware
at
of his
all.
surroundings, demanding not to be touched. Foreshadowing anyone? Honestly, people don't really consider foreshadowing for Ciel and his backstory.
Although I do remember the whole "don't touch me" bit. I do remember that in the show. Did they get rid of the gun, though, for censorship reasons? If they did, like, I get it, but also, come on, man, it's Black Butler. They're gonna do censor the gore and Attack on Titan. Censor the gun. And Black Butler. I mean, it's bad firearm usage. Then again, he thought he kind of needs one. Also, what's gonna happen to Sebastian?
Until Book of Circus, but it's been here all along, plain as day. Well, the foreshadowing in the Red Butler arc is more so things that can be read into what's said and more foreshadowing on Ciel's feelings and hangups, but this chapter, right out the gate with his PTSD symptoms. However, it's explained away by the fact that he was reading Edgar Allan Poe before bed. Sure. And it's also a big day.
Which is funny.
Because Aunt Midford is coming to visit. Yes, the Red Butler arc and following chapter may as well just be called Getting to Know Ciel's Aunts, the story arc. Ciel panics, stating that they have to hurry up and get ready because it is Aunt Frances, implying that she's rather particular, which I get it. I have family members that are also rather particular, so when they come to visit, it is a big deal, and everything needs to be spotless. In fact, Aunt Frances is so particular.
I just remembered why they're so particular. I just remembered the backstory. I'm just allowing here for the ride, like lee, and then I just remembered. I forgot just how particular they are.
Particular that she is greatly displeased with Ciel and Sebastian's appearances, stating that their bangs are far too long for males and fixing them up to be proper gentlemen. We learn that Aunt Frances is Vincent's sister, and she actually met her husband by beating him at a fencing tournament. He's like the head knight or something like that. Aunt Frances is pretty powerful, and she's a stickler for rules and order, and it's up to her to whip her nephew and his servants into shape. She can't have her daughter marrying a degenerate now, can she? Yes.
That's fair.
If you missed it before, Ciel and Lizzie are first cousins. I don't know why they're engaged. It's a political thing, really and truly. I don't think they knew about the medical dangers of incest back then, but it's still weird. But you know what?
It is weird.
We can take solace in the fact that Ciel most likely will not be alive long enough to marry Lizzie and have children.
Yep. Nothing weird. We can all be happy, knowing that he's going to die a horrible death before he gets the chance to get laid.
So, that kid's dying young, hate to say it. And in typical early Black Butler humor, as Sebastian gives Aunt Frances a tour of the manor, he finds that the other 3 servants have somehow managed to screw everything up, causing Sebastian to lead everyone out to the stables to look at the new horses instead. Aunt Frances then gets the idea of going hunting as a way for Ciel to prove his worth as Lizzie's future husband. And
Let's go!
He's not just a fragile little boy, which I'm not sure if we're supposed to read into this with the twin Ciel thing. We're not going to talk a whole lot about that, but basically, the reason I think this might...
I don't know anything about the twin Ciel. I know it's a thing. I always thought that it was fanon. I did not think it was real.
Be important for that is the twins. You have, bear with me, you have a real Ciel, who was the older, I mean, they're twins, so how much older can he really be? But the older twin who was healthier and set to inherit everything and become Vincent's successor. And then you have our Ciel, who was very sick. He took after Rachel. He had asthma. He was very fragile as a kid. So this almost seems like Ciel having to prove that he is who he says he is and not who he really is. If that's confusing, we'll talk about it later as the manga.
It is confusing. It is very confusing. I don't know anything about the twins.
Gets there. I just really, really needed to provide that context for my thoughts on this bit. Lizzie ends up having a moment with Sebastian where she mentions that Ciel seems to be feeling better. She really tries her best to cheer him up, but Lizzie tends to get too carried away and ends up getting on his nerves instead. I also think it's really funny that both Ciel and Frances seem to be competitive, and I love that they entertain each other on that front. I honestly read this whole hunting competition more as Frances doing something for Ciel and spending time with him, instead of her actually having beef with him. She just wants what's best for Ciel and Lizzie, and it's pretty clear that Ciel has spent a great deal of time with his family throughout his life. Frances and Ciel come to a draw, and while discussing tiebreakers, a bear comes out to be a part of the party. Ciel immediately jumps to protect Lizzie, and Frances shoots the bear, breaking their tie, but also proving that Ciel is worthy of marrying Lizzie. I also think it's sweet that Frances acknowledges...
That is cute. It was the perfect ending. Frances still gets to be like, I'm better than you. I guess we'll have to do this again. And Ciel is just like, I've protected my dear girl.
Acknowledges that Ciel is still quite young and has a lot of growing to do before he could really take her on in a competition. As they leave, Frances
barely
reveals to
wins.
Sebastian
Hot bear.
that she knows he killed the bear with a knife. She admits that her shots missed since she was too worried about Lizzie. She questions why Sebastian let everyone believe that Frances took the bear down and beat Ciel, to which Sebastian more or less says Ciel needed to learn a lesson.
There's always Sebastian there to be the father figure, I guess, to say, hey, guess what? I don't know. He's just the one who's there to... It's like, of course. It's like, I missed, but you did it. Of course, you were the one to kill him. And it's like, of course, Sebastian did. I'm not mad. It's just like, of course he did. Of course, she would miss. And the other reason why I went down was because of Sebastian, because Sebastian would do that. Because of course he would.
Ciel can't always win, and he really needed to be humbled. They get back home to find that the servants have prepared a birthday celebration for Ciel. It's his 13th birthday! Woo,
Yay!
let's go! He stays 13 for a while. I'm pretty sure he is still 13 in the manga right now, which means that from this point, this chapter takes place at the very end of volume 3. So from
Which means it's December, first of all. They went hunting in December. And second of all, I also think that he turned 14 at some point. I think he might have been 14 on the boat in Book of Atlantic. Oh, I had the name. It was right there. Huh.
From the very end of volume 3 up until, what are we at? Like, chapter 200 is coming out, but I think we're on, like, volume 38 or 39 or something ridiculous like that. Not even a full year has passed. Not even a full year has passed since this chapter and the current chapter of the manga. From what I remember. I was thinking about this when I woke up this morning, because we have the Jack the Ripper arc, which takes place, I'm assuming, in September, kind of that era. This chapter obviously takes place in December. The next story arc, I think, takes place December, January-ish. Book of Circus takes place sometime in the winter. And after Book of Circus, you have Book of Murder. It's unclear the time frame, but I think that's early spring. Then after Book of Murder, you have the Book of Atlantic, which takes place, I think, late spring, early summer. Then you have the Western Arc, which I'm pretty sure takes place in June or July. It does specify a month. I just don't remember. Then after the Western Arc, you have the Green Emerald Witch Arc, which I feel like that takes place in August. I feel it in my gut. It takes place in August. But I have no clue. I don't remember if they specified. And then after that, you have the Blue Sect arc, which takes place, I would assume, like August, September, that era. But then there's a special chapter that takes place in Halloween, somewhere in there. But I don't know if that falls into canon. And basically, we haven't reached December yet. So I'm pretty sure this whole everything, the whole manga from here on out, is in the span of like a year.
Wow.
Not quite a year yet.
Quite a year that's going on.
The timeline is
just in time for the brand new year. Are we ready, folks?
Ciel's going through so much so quickly all the time. Life needs to slow down for him and for everyone. Anyway, as they celebrate, Frances reveals that she knew of all the mishaps Sebastian was avoiding earlier that day, letting us know that she is much more aware than most people tend to be so far in the series. But obviously not aware enough to know that Sebastian is a demon. However, she does express distaste for his face. And I want to mention this because there are some fan theories on the nature of the Phantom Hive bloodline. There is a character who...
Oh, yeah, there was a whole thing that, like, there was the theory that, Ciel wanted Sebastian to appear a lot like Vincent. And, if late Madame Red was Ciel's mom's, on Ciel's mom's side, then that means that Vincent's side, that's his sister, I think. Unless it's just his sister-in-law, but either way, they're close.
Who is later on revealed to be a Reaper who people think could be Vincent and Frances's father. It's all fan theory right now.
There you go.
And Frances is portrayed as an amazingly powerful woman. We don't see her exhibit ability outside of human capabilities, but it is mentioned.
I don't like it when it turns out that, like, a father, it's like, oh, my father actually was a half Grim Reaper, and that's why I have supernatural powers, and that's why you'll never get my soul, Sebastian.
That she is surprisingly strong, so take that for what it's worth. We then get a moment of Sebastian not understanding humans, and honestly, this is pretty standard, generic, fish out of water, demon in the human realm type of thing. Not too much to say here, but we do end the chapter on an introduction to 2 new faces.
Soma and Agni!
We'll have to wait until the next video to discuss these 2. And that has been my deep dive into the Red Butler arc. Thank you so much for watching. I hope
Thank you, everybody, for watching this episode. Yes, leave a like and subscribe. Check out Pocket Leaves, of course. Check out Pocket Leaves. Links are all in the description. And yeah, this is very interesting. So far, season 1 seeming pretty canon to me. And I'm very excited to see that Soma and Agni are the next ones, the next parts of the next deep dive to go down. And yeah, thank you so much for watching again, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.